candidate. Our speaker today is a leader in both his professional life and in Toastmasters. In his professional life, he was the Assistant Director for the Riverside County Department of Public Health, where he led the country's COVID response operations with a staff of over 500. Michael is well known in Toastmasters, being a member since 2008, and having served on the Toastmasters International Board of Directors and led District 12 in Riverside, California to international recognition in 2013-2014. This year in Nashville, at the International Convention, he received a presidential citation from the International President, Richard Peck. Today, as part of the dynamic leadership path, he will be presenting on learning his leadership style, what it's like to be a campaign manager. Please join me in welcoming past International Director, Distinguished Toastmaster, Michael Osur.
Have you ever thought about what it takes to be a campaign manager for somebody running for International Director? Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, this year, I was the co-manager for the person from Region 8, Anwesha Banerjee, along with past International Director Jackie Schneider in Region 4 from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Now, I've been a campaign person before, but this year it really hit home because this was going to be in person versus just online. And when I ran in 2015, 16, I had people doing my role. Now, we happen to think that you should have past international directors as your campaign managers. Not everyone agrees. And we were introduced to this person who it turned out I met once. She was a counter when I was the chief judge in 2018 in Chicago, but I didn't remember her. See how things go, but I found a picture of her. And we were introduced by another past international director from Texas. So what is the role here? Now, we think about leadership, managers. Are you directive? Are you one of those people that sets deadlines and makes people meet them? Well, if you want to be international director, you have to have a lot of those internal motivations set already. So our role, my role, was really to be a coach, not directing at all, but to guide Anwesha through the process. Now, this is a multi-step process. If you say, oh my God, I can't stand in front of 1,000 people and give a 2-minute speech. Well, I would say, Anwesha, first you fill out, you tell the Toastmasters that you're interested in running, and they send you a form and you fill it out. We'll help you fill it out. Can you do that? Oh yeah, that's easy. Look at step 1 done. Step 2, once you do that, is to fill out this information of what's your history in Toastmasters, what awards you have won. I call it the bio sheet, what your job is, what boards you've been on, what's going on in the organization, what's your vision for Toastmasters. This takes about a month through many revisions. Now you can say, who should do this work? Well, again, as a coach, my job is to edit, but not to write. Now I may do a word here or two. And I think sometimes the candidates think that someone's going to do something for them. Not the case. Now, I'm used to being government. We have policies, procedures, rules, and people do their job, or you take them aside and you tell them the consequences. The beauty of Toastmasters, oh my, we have bylaws, we have policies, we have procedures, we have guidelines, we have everything you can imagine, manuals, and running for office at the international level has its own protocol and plenty of other words of wisdom coming from Toastmasters Internationals. And because Anwesha was a research scientist, she knew all about following protocols and rules, sometimes too much. My other job is to go behind the scenes and figure out what issues might be happening. So in the middle of this process, Anwesha, and Region 8, by the way, is Georgia, Florida, the Bahamas. I think it might even include Brazil, but that area of the country. In the middle of the process, Anwesha got a job in the San Francisco Bay Area, south of San Francisco. Well, that's Region 2. So we had to have a meeting with Toastmasters to say, oh, she got nominated, but she doesn't live in the region anymore. Can she still be on a candidate? And that took days to figure out, but it's finally decided because she got nominated when she was still living in Georgia, she could still run. Now, this sounds like silliness, but it's just like those people who are running for city council and live in the wrong part of the city and can't run for District 1 because they now live in District 3. This happens all the time. So that's part 3, is getting past the nominations process. So we had a team of 5, someone from Australia, someone from Georgia, Canada, me, and a few others. And to prepare for the nomination process, it's called the ILC, International Leadership Committee. And it's a 45 to 50-minute interview, usually with past international directors, past presidents, and they ask about 15 questions. Now think about this, there's 5 or 6 people trying to run from every region, and you have to really answer all the questions. So you figure that out, it's 2 to 3 minutes a question. And I'm used to government. In an hour, I may ask only 4 questions. I want to go deep. Well, the Toastmaster one is more of a broad spectrum. And I like to think that we evolved into good answers, because otherwise it devolves into total chaos. So we grilled her for months on the kinds of questions that would get asked, because we've all run before. We keep these records of the questions. It sounds like no fun. And then there's, in January, you find out you get nominated, which was no doubt. But now I say, now the real work begins. You need a website, you need a Facebook page. You got to figure out how you're gonna send things out to all the district leaders. You're gonna have to call past presidents and ask them for advice, because presidents, even though they aren't on campaigns, they can be very influential. And you start to think, oh my God. Now, if anyone's been to a convention, there's 3 things you do. On the opening ceremonies as a candidate, you walk across stage, and if you see it, you wave your hand. I call it the Queen's wave, and you smile at the audience. This sounds so easy, but if you look at the video from this year, half the people didn't do the right thing. They waved the wrong hand. They didn't wave, they didn't look at the audience, they didn't smile. So believe it or not, I worked with Anwesha to make sure she could do the wave and to make sure she would smile and walk across the stage. I know it sounds simple, it's very challenging. Number 2, table topics on steroids. You have 6 minutes, they ask you between 5 and 8 questions that you don't know what they are. It's being broadcast all over the world, and there's at least 1,000 people in the audience. Now, this is where the hard part comes in. And we did a great job. The other person from running from Region 8 is one of those people that commands the stage and tells humorous stories. By the time the second person was done, everyone was laughing and Wisha was crying. And I assured her that it is not a speech contest. It doesn't matter if people laugh and are having a good time. It's what you are as a leader. That took like a day and a half to resolve. Then there was the 2-minute speech, which we had worked on for 3 months nonstop. But in the middle, I want to tell 2 stories. Running is still political. You have to meet and talk to everyone, and you still have to be a person. So Anwesha's sister had flown in. They're both from India, but her sister lives in London, and Anwesha lives now in San Francisco area. Her sister had come in to show support. And it was about 3 hours before the election was going to occur. At the big Gaylord Hotel, Tim will remember this, there's a Starbucks in the middle of the hotel where everybody has to go either one way or the other as they get to the convention center or get to the rooms. I had already scoped out the best place to sit in that Starbucks, and I had her and her sister sit in the corner, and for an hour and a half, they met everybody who was going to vote coming through that. And it wasn't like she was campaigning, oh, did you meet my sister? I'd like you to meet my sister. And she got to talk to at least 100 people before that. Was it cheating, Fritz? No, we weren't campaigning. We were just drinking coffee and introducing people to her sister. Oh my. My other story is, I was also what's called the observer. So if anyone who voted, the vote happens, then there's a few hours of delay while the votes are calculated. I had to go in and look at the results for her region, and I knew the results 2 hours before they announced the results. We were sworn not to tell anybody, not to do a thumbs up, not to do a thumbs down, not to cry, not a smiley face. So past international president, Pat Johnson, was in charge of this process. And I looked at her and I go, holy crap, Pat, what am I gonna do? She goes, you're gonna go to your room, turn off your phone and take a nap. You don't talk to anybody. And I did. And then just before the election results are announced, I sit in with my group and they're all looking at me. And I have to have the deadpan face. And you know me, I show emotion everywhere. Anyway, she won by 361 votes. We all cried. And we're still flying high from that event. And she is the only millennial on the board of directors, seriously. And this gives us an opportunity to finally reach out to that group of people. Of course, I have more to say. We'll talk about the presidential citation another day, and let's see how she does this year. I'm fully confident. She's very coachable, and she has a great campaign manager, Mr. Toastmaster.